States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have a pretty light schedule ahead of us here, so we should be done relatively quickly. We'll start with our activity reports. We had a police and fire meeting last week, talked a little bit about fundraising for the Night to Unite, which is on our update, along with a potential joint city council and police and fire advisory board meeting, which stems out of our going to the township meeting, where the township advised they did not want to pay for us to do traffic enforcement out there. So police and fire is discussing options there, and I'll touch on that when we get to it in our update. Otherwise, I don't have any other board meetings to report. I'm not in Denmark, for reasons we've previously discussed, and that's going to turn out well. I don't think I have anything else. Jean?
The boards and commissions meeting last week.
Oh, yes, we had our all board meeting.
Yeah, and then I had the EDI meeting in the morning. So that's, and there's nothing on the agenda about that.
All right.
I had the trade board meeting and the other all board meeting that Gene, you were at.
Okay. Anything else? Tarek's not here to give a report. All right, we'll make sure to note that come next January. Ron?
All right, thank you. First of all, we got a little bit of bad news, good news. First of all, we were not successful in our tree grant application for our inventory. That is also in your informational packet here tonight. Hydrant flushing, April 29th, or April 19th to 20th. Spring cleanup is April 29th. Compost in the RV dump, we will open up once weather permits, likely late April, the way it's looking. Also, street sweeping, a lot of sand out there. As soon as we are able, we will get out there and start that up. Brad and Jason, they both attended the Minnesota Wastewater Operators Training over in Sartell. Let's see, the SCADA system update that we approved about a year ago will still get going tomorrow. They finally have got all their pieces and parts together, so. I'd like to give a thank you to the Coronas Hills Golf Course for the agreement on the sliding hill. I think it was used quite extensively this year. As I'd like to also extend a thank you for all the fire department volunteers and the township for taking care of the outdooring this year. And then the good news is we finally got our payment from MnDOT Aeronautics of $112,000 for the 2018 hangar project. So,
All right.
yes, thank you.
Nice of them to sit on that for a while. Any questions for Ron? Thank you. Paul?
I have a question for Ron. I just want to give you guys an update on the min bid stuff. So all 4 of those items sold. The plow truck went for $3,600. I believe Ron had originally set a reserve on that at $45,000 in consultation with Tarek. He was okay selling that at the top bid. So I don't know if that's something that we need to have the council necessarily take any action on or not. The compressor went for $750. The Ford truck was $19,600, and then the Chrysler went for $2,400.
So we got a little bit more for the car and a little bit less for the truck.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was surprised that the car went for $24,000.
But the plow truck, I don't think the council set a reserve on that, did we?
No, I think it was just Ron's suggestion.
Well, we did have $4,500 on it.
But was that part of the council motion, or was that just your?
I have to go back and look.
Okay. Take a quick look here. When did we approve that? Do you remember?
I
I don't even have it. Okay. Well, we can come back to that. Is anybody here for the open forum? Okay. All right, we have our consent agenda, which includes the minutes listed there on our agenda, the vouchers on page 2, totaling $278,941.02, along with the resignation of one of the part-time police officers. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or would anybody like something pulled?
No, I'll make a motion to approve consent.
And this motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. Right. Want us to move you up so that you don't have to sit here until the very end of the agenda?
No, not yet.
Okay.
You're waiting for somebody else?
Yeah, we're waiting for Jeff.
Okay.
I'm going to give Jen just a minute because I know she was taking some minutes too.
You did set minimum bids for the dump truck of 4,500 and air compressor of 750.
So let's add under new business, let's add an N to revisit the minimum bid for the plow truck. Thank you, Jen. All right, moving on, new business A. Jen, in case you want to know for your minutes there was a motion to approve the consent agenda by Soini, seconded by Thielen, and unanimously carried. Public Works, sewer jetting and televising quotes. Ron?
Okay, 5 years ago, we did send a contract with Johnson Jet. That contract has expired. They did an extremely good job over the course of those 5 years. We did solicit one other quote, and they came in actually identical on the cleaning. However, the televising, they were substantially higher. So this went through the Public Works, and they did recommend Johnson Jet for another 5-year contract, and these items, they are budgeted in the sewer department.
Is that an increase over what we've been paying? I assume it is.
Slightly. I think the old price was 67 cents, so.
Okay. So with that, a motion on the, as on the action sheet would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the sewer jetting and televising quote and contract with Johnson Jet Line.
Yeah, there's a motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen, to approve the sewer jetting and televising quote and contract with Johnson Jet Line. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. Right, Ron, well number 5 for you.
Well, number 5 was installed in 1993, I believe it was. Been in service obviously ever since. Right now, we are seeing a drop in the capacity in there. And you want to rehab the wells before they lose too much capacity, or we'd have to go and actually drill a new well. I think this will be the 3rd time in the course of so many years that since it's been installed. If you rehab them every 5 to 10 years, they say that the well should be able to last 50 years. So I think we've got the number of years to go yet. So we did get 2 quotes, one from Thine and one from Charlton, and the low being from Thine well for $19,133.50.
That's the recommendation of Public Works.
It is.
Again, I'll make a motion to approve the quote from Time Well to rehab well number 5 in the amount of $19,133.50.
Right, motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen to approve the quote from Time Well to rehab well number 5 in the amount of $19,133.50. Any further discussion?
Just to note, these funds would come out of the water rehab, or water replacement funds.
Okay. Funds to come out of the water rehab and replacement fund. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Okay, Ron, new tires on the irrigators.
All right, they've come up with a new brand of irrigation tire called the Nef-Trax. It's an airless tire, and we're going to be replacing 4 more units possibly next year, we'd like to try a couple of these. This is, they are $6,000 a piece, however, your normal tire is $55.30 each, so it's only about $470 difference, and if we never have a flat, that it would be well worth it. I mean, walking through a cornfield when the corn's 10 feet tall is no fun, so we'd like to give them a try, 2 sets, and these funds will come out of the sewer capital improvement.
It's 6,000 per set, not per tire, right?
Correct, 6,000 per set.
And how many tires per set?
2. So, no, there's nothing cheap about it, but your normal tires are 5,300. So,
I did some research on this today, and yeah, they're gonna last a lot longer and stuff, but if we're gonna be replacing the irrigation systems, I mean, is that gonna be transferred over to the new pivots?
well, if it turns out they work well,
Yeah.
the pivots will be ordered with these here tires.
And how many, I guess that, I have already asked that question, how many tires per pivot?
Normally we have roughly 7 towers, so it'd be 14 tires per pivot.
It's 14 times 6,000.
No, 7 times 6, because it's 2 tires per set.
Oh, that's right.
And he said 14 tires.
Okay, sure.
But I think we're looking at this as an experiment.
Yes.
Yeah.
To try them.
I think, you have on here, the 2 tires would be $55.30, so it's an increase of $470.
Correct.
Like you said, that's one call out in the middle of the weekend.
Right.
Well, I did check with Kronos Tire, they do sell this stuff also, but they didn't come back with a price yet. Is there a chance we could just table this till the next meeting, till we get a different price? Because are those gonna be installed soon?
Well, we want to get them before the season starts.
Yeah. Would 2 weeks be enough time?
I guess my concern is with everything we've had going on in the supply chain and stuff like that. I mean, we've ordered things and had them fall off. I'd rather we just move forward with it. It's a nominal increase over the other price. Was this the company we've worked with for tires previously? Because my preference would be moving forward tonight and getting the order placed.
I kind of agree with Paul, I would like to get a price from Kronos Tire, because I
Yeah.
like to do local if I can.
If we can.
And the other thing too is, the 2 sets at 6,000 each, do you think we could get an answer with just 1 set?
Yes, we can try.
I've worked with this stuff before, and the engineering on this stuff is top line, where you're not gonna have to worry about the tires afterwards. What Kronos Tire said is that normally, it's, the pneumatic tires are in the field so long that they rot.
They rot, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yep, so she said that these here aren't gonna rot,
Right.
and obviously, well, like the pneumatic ones would.
Right.
So she's in, Kronos Tire is all in favor of this stuff, but she doesn't have any pricing yet.
We can wait.
We can wait? Okay.
Just 2 weeks.
Okay with it? Then let's wait.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
we can table that, and that will carry it over onto our first meeting in April. All right, going on then to the land lease agreement with Flipson on page 22, item D.
Okay, this entails the 2 city parcels that the city has on pivot 2 and the one on pivot number 3. This is actually a 10-year agreement that we've talked for about the last 20 years of tiling the property under pivot number 3. And this here agreement accomplishes that. It's a 10-year agreement, which Flipson is, with that, is obligated to tile that section. For parcels 1 and 3, it's $242 an acre, and for parcel number 2, which is the one that will be tiled, it is $200 per acre. And that is through 2027, and after that, we would renegotiate the price.
Works for me.
I'll make a motion to approve the irrigated cropland lease. Agreement between the city of Painesville and Bill Flipson.
Motion by Thielen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Soini, approving the lease agreement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. We ready? Everyone here? Do you want to hang out, or do you want us to? Oh, hang a little bit. Sure. All right, then we'll go forward. We'll take out of order new business, item J, the Queen Bee's Bar and Grill, Lions Club Beer Garden at Town and Country Days, page 52 of our agenda. Charles? Don't make me regret bringing you tonight. Okay. All right, we have representatives here from Queen Bee's along with the Lions. Doris, I guess it says that you're going to talk to us.
Well, I guess what we're going to kind of talk about tonight is having a beer gardens out at the Town and Country Days event, setting pretty close to where we are with the Lions stand and working in together with the Lions to have a family community fun event.
I will just add, just for the record, we received an email over the weekend from Jacob Bertram from the Lions, or Chamber. I was on it, Gene. Just mumbling today. That email says, Mayor Ranky and councilors, I was reading your agenda for Monday's meeting and wanted to make you aware of some information on the beer garden. The Chamber has not discussed if this is something that they would like to have during the carnival. Board plans to talk about it at the March meeting on Tuesday, 3/28. Please keep this in mind when voting on the resolution. Let me know if you have any further questions. So, I think with that in mind, anything that we wanted to do tonight would be, if we were to allow a beer garden, it would just be contingent on, of course, the Chamber's approval and
Correct.
moving forward in partnership with them. I don't have any issues. I know we've got items on here for fencing, security, stuff like that. I think all of that can be addressed like we do with beer gardens for any other event. I guess I don't know what the problem might be.
I don't know. I've worked the hamburger stand for the last half a dozen years, and all the time people say, can I get a beer with that? I'm like, no, we don't have beer. Word starts coming, people like beer.
And speaking on, as far as the Lions go, we would, appreciate something like this. It would go along well with our, the hamburger stand that we have there. We would, imagine it would be in that same corner where the hamburger stand and the pork chop stand had been set up in the past. So it would be accessible for those that wanted, a burger or a pork chop, and could go into that food tent. Fairly limited hours, not as much as the hamburger stand would be open, because not so much on Thursday. During the day, people should be working rather than going out for a beer for lunch or that type of thing. But to hopefully to expand the event, to make it more inviting to a wider range of people, but then understanding that this is not to be tied to a dance or band or anything like that, but just to give people an option for a beverage along with their burger or pork chop or corn dog or whatever.
I look at fencing and things like that, I think we could probably work that out. The only issue I might have that's not on here is, Doris, I know you and your staff are trained on it, but just checking age and things like that and verifying we're not serving minors.
Right.
I think that's going to fall under your...
Yeah, we would probably, have somebody sitting at the gate. We'd have a gate where you would walk in to get your beer. And at that time, you would be carded, just like we do at our bar. And we would still be using some of the Lions members to help us serving also. And the dates and times that we are kind of looking at are, like Jeff said, kind of limited and stuff. So, but as far as fencing, we'd kind of like to allow the community to have free roaming, like they do at the Stearns County, Meeker County, Minnesota State Fair, to be able to walk around with their beer. Not that they are limited to sitting in a fenced-in area. Was another thing that we would like to see And as far as the security goes, we were hoping that we would just be able to use the events, police force that are already scheduled to be there. We don't expect this to be a very big event this year at all. We just want to give the people the options to be able to have them here. And it won't be anything but beer at this point. There won't be any alcohol besides the hard alcohol.
So it's just gonna be beer?
Correct.
Okay, because that's all kind of vague in here where you've got the beer garden part and then with the committee council action, a motion to allow beer garden, but up top it says to dispense intoxicating liquor. And I just would see if we could just get that cleared up. So,
It will be beverages over 3.2, so whatever you call that, it would be beverages over
so
3.2.
you're gonna sell wine and mixed drinks along with it?
No.
It will be beer, but the beer will be over
Sure.
3.2.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, all right.
So the resolution that you have in front of you is what we also used for the air show last year.
Yep.
So what we did is we would call it a community event if the council desires at a future meeting to claim it a community event. Queen Bee's already has their liquor license, very similar to what the airport fly-in did with the Legion. So that's where this resolution is coming from. It's using the exact same language we used for the fly-in.
And how did we, just refresh my recollection, how did we coordinate the fencing and the security and stuff like that for that event? I'm not worried about security. I agree with you, Doris. I don't think this is going to be a big deal. And if it is, we can step in and intervene at that time. But I am concerned with, I like the idea of being able to just walk freely around the fairgrounds, but I worry in application how that's going to pan out. I know at least at the Stearns County Fair, you still have a limited number of entrances into the fairgrounds. You're not just walking around the city. And here it's a little more open. We're just going to and from Lake Street or Lake Avenue back into town. That's my concern. If we fenced off all of Town and Country Days, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But
I can speak to that a little bit. I've gone to the Winter Carnival in St. Paul and Rice Park, and the entire block is open. You can walk in from any, you can walk in from one of the entrances on the corners, you can walk in from across the street from one of the food vendors there, or whatever. Similar for other events, I believe it's the Spectacular Days in Avon. They have their beer garden set up in the shelter in the middle of the park there. There are no other single or specific entrances. You can come in from the parade on the street or whatever. So there are communities where I guess they believe or that their attendees are adult enough to watch themselves, and there are other things in place to enforce and keep an eye on that.
But we didn't work out all, did we work out all of those logistics at the same time we approved the resolution for the air show? Was that all in place at that time?
I don't know. I think a couple things as we talk about this, we have to consider. I understand what they're saying, and I understand why they would want, somebody to be able to just go on the grounds there. The problem is I don't know what these other communities have, but the city of Painesville has an ordinance that says there's no alcohol, allowed, open containers allowed on the streets. So if we have an open room venue, we're gonna run into issues where we have people wandering the city streets coming from that event, most likely with alcohol, which kind of presents its own issue. And I know, Doris, you had mentioned that the Lions were gonna help serve, but I believe in our research of this, that presents an issue that it has to be people associated or hired within Queen Bee's and servers under that liquor license. So I don't believe they can just have the Lions Club serve the alcohol.
I can hire pretty much anybody to serve alcohol as long as they're 18 or older.
Correct, but that's what I'm saying, they would have to be an employee of Queen Bee's. It couldn't just be hey Jeff, you're with the Lions, I want you to come down and help. You know, they would have to be an
I
employee.
don't think that's necessary.
Yes,
how other-
and the fire department, they serve theirs for the,
Correct, but they are operating differently. They are getting a liquor license under a 501c3 to be able to do that. In this case, this is a licensee who's already licensed, not having to get a specific permit. We specifically looked at this when this came
Would it be easier for
on.
the Lions to just get a liquor license for that event? And to do it that way?
It would be kind of, you know, senseless when I have a catering license and I do have the right to go anywhere in the state of Minnesota to serve alcohol, and I do have the right then also to serve, have anybody hired or help me serve regardless if they're hired or volunteering
Yeah.
for wine, and I'll call the state of Minnesota alcohol and ask them that question too if you want me to.
So-
I didn't bring my book with, but I did check on it, and it said as long as I am with them and supervising them, I would be able to have them serve the beer, as long as it's not to anybody under the age of 21.
I'm good with this. The only suggestion that I would make is that we add in, I think people taking it and going, you know, that's something we're just gonna have to deal with. I think people who do that are already probably going to have a cooler of beer watching the parade anyway. I'm good with it. I would just ask that we do some sort of wristband or something
Right.
for people who are drinking rather than a card, something that's going to be more permanent.
Right.
But other than that, I'm good with
I think
this.
you would plan to do that anyway.
Right.
Probably, rather than having the bartenders do the cash, you do that up front. A lot of the nonprofits do that. If you go into their, like Bonnie Fest over at Coldspring, you go in, you show your ID, and you get special tickets and a wristband. And if you don't have the wristband and the ticket, when you show up to get your beverage, you don't get it.
Yeah.
That eliminates passing off bought tickets to underage people.
And I think for everything else, we can post some signs that say you can't remove alcohol from this event, blah, 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 here it is. And, you know, you can't be drinking anything unless you have a wristband on your person. Take it from there. I think those are logistics things that we can deal with as this goes forward. And I trust that you'll get an answer one way or another on the serving piece before we get there. It's a few months away, so just time to call.
I thank you for your time, and then we will attend the meeting tomorrow night, also with the chamber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I think a motion will be in order.
I'll make the motion to allow beer garden to be placed at 605 Lake Avenue during town council days.
There's a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen, as stated on the action sheet, to allow beer garden at 605 Lake during town and country days. Any further discussion?
What happens, do you want a contingent on the chamber?
Oh, yeah,
Because if the chamber comes back and says, no, what's their,
I don't think they will, but yes, make it contingent on the chamber. Amend my motion.
So the motion is to allow beer garden to be placed at 605 Lake Avenue during town and country days, contingent on approval from the chamber to allow such an event.
Second.
Second? Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
This is why you're here.
it's going to be null and void if the chamber says, no way.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we'd have to come back and it'd be a whole thing and,
See how we wish you?
all right. So then we have, going back up to item E, it's page 34 of our agenda, donating surplus property. This came up as Chief Soini mentioned a couple of weeks ago regarding the fire masks that they'd like to donate to the Historical Society. We don't have a definition in our ordinance for it. Bill Spooner drafted up the ordinance resolution that's in our packet. We'd be looking to approve that. The only change that policies and procedures made, there was a typographical error, and then there was a dollar amount that Bill Spooner put in here. And we talked about there's no way to effectively value something. Because you could look at eBay for one thing or Craigslist the next, and really who's going to know what anything's worth. So we just said if we're just going to donate something, just bring it to council and have the council approve it. So with that, policies and procedures recommended the adoption of the ordinance as contained on the action sheet.
Is So now we just have an official policy.
Yep.
One more.
So then on page 38, is it your understanding that you should take out that value? Just completely take out the $10,000?
If it's still in there, then yes.
It is, okay. Well, I'll just remove that. So with that correction, you can approve it.
Yep. Nice catch, John. I missed that one in reviewing it.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 42, third series, amending chapter 2 regarding the donation of surplus property, resolution 2023-08, policy on donation of surplus property or equipment, and Painesville City Council policy on donation of surplus property or equipment.
And I assume your motion on the policy is contingent on removing the $10,000 language?
Contingent on removing the $10,000.
All right, motion by Thielen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Soini, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, carries. Okay. Going on to extended vacancy policy, page 39. This came about to address the issue that we had with staffing and issues like that, where we were looking at some back pay, and we just thought it made sense to have a policy in place so that there's some clarity on the issue going forward. This is something that I found from a different government agency and adapted to our use. Policies and procedures reviewed it. Jen, I think you and I even chatted about it a little bit at one point. And I think everyone said it looks good. It's nice to have some clarity on it. So Policies and Procedures recommends adoption of this policy.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the extended employee vacancy policy, which will be included in the personnel policies.
There's a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen. As stated on the action sheet, to approve the extended employee vacancy policy included in our personnel policies. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. All right, over to Chuck to tell us about the youth safety camp. Oh, that's right, he abandoned us too. John.
All right, thank you. We did get an email here from the Stearns County Sheriff asking to utilize the airport again for their youth safety camp, July 13, from 8 to 4. They plan on having, I think, the representatives from the DNR. Lifelink's going to come out. I think the fire department's going to go out. Stearns Electric is going to be out there for a period, and then a couple different divisions of the actual sheriff's department will be there. So like I said, I would bring it forward.
Sounds great to me.
I'll make the motion to allow the Stearns County Sheriff's Department to use the airport property for Stearns County Youth Safety Camp on July 13th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a backup date of July 27th.
All right, there's a motion as stated on the action sheet by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. Great. The PTO Bank donation program. Oh, I'm glad to say that this is no longer on policies and procedures. We have been discussing this for quite some time. It's gone back and forth with the labor attorney who wrote us novels upon novels on how to amend this. In essence, what it is that employees who have excess PTO, or that's going to expire, or even if they just want to donate it when somebody gets sick, this is meant to be a stopgap measure. So if somebody runs out of their own PTO before the long-term disability kicks in or short-term disability kicks in, they can dip into a PTO bank that can then pay out their wages during that period. It's entirely voluntary for other employees to kick in. They don't have to, but it's there if they want to. It's something that serves as another backup in case some sort of medical emergency or catastrophic circumstance happens. And sort of as we talked about in policies and procedures, that would cover anything from emergency surgeries, or your house burns down, funerals, anything like that. Those sort of unplanned things, or maybe even something like the birth of a child. It's a way of getting in some sort of some paid leave in for those events that might not otherwise be covered. So, this is voluntary. It has requirements in here on how many hours can be donated in a year and what the minimum balances might be. And we can talk about it in more detail, but I think
A lot
that's,
of companies do this.
yep.
That have PTO.
So I have an issue. Yeah, for full-time employees, but isn't your secretary three-quarter time?
Yeah.
It should almost say, more than half, or part-time. So if she's getting 30 hours a week, I mean, it almost seems like it's almost unfair to exclude her, because we can't get her around 40 hours a week. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is she the only one that's 30 hours a week?
Yes. She only
Except for maybe some liquor store.
Except for liquor store.
Right, liquor
No,
store.
because all your liquor store clerks are up to 32 hours also. So the PTO bank, you can only put in if you're full-time, and you can only take if you're full-time. So full-time employees can put in, but only full-time employees can take out.
Okay, I wasn't considering that.
Is he eligible for PTO? Yeah, I didn't think so.
They have to be, they don't have those benefits anyway. They don't have PTO. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And I think I'd have to check the notes again. They're in all of the agendas, but I think there might have been something from the labor attorney on why it's limited to full-time as well.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it for gospel, but I think there's something
Well,
there.
probably because they're the only ones that put into it.
And I would say if the others aren't eligible,
They aren't
you'd be giving a benefit that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm going to make the motion to approve the PTO bank policy for full-time employees, which will be included in personnel policies.
Motion by Thielen, is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, all right. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. Right. Trails, part of the Glacial Lakes Extension, page 49. Paul? No, sorry, Ron.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is from the...
I was thinking about our trail member, Paul.
This is from the Trail Board Committee, though, and they do recommend approving it. And I think everybody's well aware that the DNR has developed the Glacier Lakes Trail from Wilmer up to Painesville here and from Roscoe to Cold Spring. We have a 7-mile stretch here that has not been developed, and as of right now, if you ask them, it's probably at least 7 to 10 years out. However, if we can put a little pressure on them, gain a little momentum, some of the members felt we should take this one step further, go to Cold Spring, Richmond, Rockville, and get all their support on this, and see if we can't get that section of the trail moving also. So I'd like to thank the mayor for bringing this up and drafting the resolution, and hopefully we can get something done with it.
And just to add to that, it looks like this could happen sometime in the next 2 to 3 years, good, because the funding is there. And also they want to do in coordination with replacing Highway 55 bridge over Crow River behind Dollar General, because they're going to add a part of the trail right out of that. So that's why if we can coordinate all this together at once, the chances of it going through, like Chuck said, are a lot higher.
And I meant to look back at my notes and see what I sent you, but I thought this was the resolution I sent.
Yeah, this is one you sent us.
Okay.
I think we made a tweak or two, but that's it.
Right, so with that, a motion would be in order approving resolution 2023-10.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 23-10, declaring support for extension of the Glacial Lakes Steep Trail from Roscoe to Painesville.
All right, we have a motion by Thielen as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini. Any further discussion? I would just note that, like Ron said, I drafted this, so if you vote against it, I will be personally offended.
Oh.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. All right, on to our update, 19-night fundraising grant, page 1. Police and Fire Board was talking about fundraising for the Night to Unite. Chief can probably talk a little bit more about some of the issues with scheduling the golf tournament. I'm not going to belabor that here. But basically, we're just looking at ideas for raising some funds. And while I was perusing the Book of Faces this morning, the Painesville Area Community Foundation was advertising their grant openings. And those applications are due the 31st. I thought if the council would authorize the chief and I to sit down and fill out a grant application, we should do that. I've already got one started because I couldn't help but pick at it a little bit today. But I think it'd be nice if we can apply for that, maybe get some grant funding and help pay for some of the costs that come with that. I don't know, I sent you the email about it, but
Yeah.
we haven't had a chance to chat about it, so I don't know how you feel. I assumed it'd be pretty,
You have 4 days.
I know. Oh, 4 days, this is ample time.
Only takes an hour, right?
To be fair, Sean probably has 95% of it done, so.
I do.
It's probably just more of a formality to sit down and be like, is this all right? Yep.
I tried printing it off, but their website doesn't like printing the things, so I was like, we'll just have to do it. It's mostly just how much do we want to apply for?
Right.
I guess, I don't know, maybe we can put that in the motion tonight.
Did you just do it for just the picnic or everything?
I did it for just the night to unite, and I said there's some additional funds in there for rental of equipment or stuff as necessary. And then I put a line in that anything over what is expended would go towards the gifts at the community service center.
I was thinking it might be worthwhile to throw Dare in that.
I'd be open to that, yeah, that's fine.
We're running into issues with our fundraising event, so.
Yeah. Well, and this is an easier way than going knocking on doors. That's not fun.
So I think a motion would be in order to approve
You guys can work on
the
that.
chief and I to work together to submit appropriate paperwork for the grant relating to Night to Unite Dare and whatever form or, yeah, whatever we want to call shop with the cop nowadays, now that we're not actually shopping with cops. Because of the limited retail available in town. Yeah. So,
Okay, I'll make a motion to authorize our mayor and chief of police to work together to complete and submit the appropriate paperwork to the Community Foundation grant application and authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documents.
okay. Motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Phelan, as stated on the action sheet. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. On page 2 of the update. This relates to the contract with the township. Township said they were not interested in increasing the average property owner's taxes by $25 a year to do traffic enforcement out in the township. They'd rather rely on the sheriff. Discussed it a little bit with the police and fire board, talked about doing some community canvassing on what our taxpaying residents want in terms of us responding to calls in the township and incurring the expense and the wear and tear on our vehicles that accompanies that. I suggested that we hold basically a community forum and hear from people directly. The initial thought was to have members of the police and fire board sort of go around and informally canvass people. I like that because I think it's a little bit more formal, or informal, I mean, so you can be a little bit more personal with it. But I don't like that by the time it gets reported back, you're hearing second or third hand from someone. So I propose that we schedule a public meeting and invite people to come in and let's hear from the taxpayers directly on what kind of a response we should be giving the township for police calls that happen out there. That cover it all? You want to add?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're just, we're looking for direction from the community. We've been providing services out there, of the call volume that's been out there roughly, it's like 40-45% is being handled or at least assisted by us. The township pretty much, their comment was, we're getting it for free. Why would we pay for it? Because it was more than just traffic, it was a presence, is really what we were offering the township, was more of a patrol type presence out there. They're not interested in that, that's fine, but for us to continue to operate and function, I'd like to know what the community thinks, to what extent we should be doing that.
Well, struggling with this. If there's a call out there, fire department's gonna go regardless. And if you're needed, you're gonna go out there regardless. So I'm more worried about the answer of, well, why should we pay for it if they're gonna show up anyways? And hopefully we can take that thought and twist it around to where, yeah, maybe we do need them. I wish I had more ideas on that, but I don't.
Well, I think that's largely what we talked about. We talked about it the night after the township board meeting. We talked about it at police and fire. I don't know that the city's response needs to be, we're going to go out there. We had a call where we were asked to go out today on an assist a person. It wasn't an emergency, nobody was being threatened, nothing like that. And I flat out told them, we're not going. If the deputy needs our assistance when he gets there, then we'll back you up and we will, we're going to support, the other law enforcement partners in the area. But there was no need for us to go out there. And it took them 45 minutes for a deputy to show up. And this is where I'm looking for that direction, because as a city, you're right. If we continue to show up at every single call, there's no incentive for anybody to ever change what they're doing. And this is really more about change, and it's either paying for a service that you're getting or changing the responsibility of those that are, responsible for providing the service out there.
I think even if things stay the same, if we hear from everyone in town, the neighborly, the good neighbor thing to do is to respond to calls out there. Okay, but then we've heard that opinion, we've heard from the people who are paying for the wear and tear on the squads, for the overtime, the court calls, all of the things that come with responding to these calls. They come at a cost. And if that's something that our citizens want to pay, then I'm good with that. But I think we need to have that conversation. So this isn't about making a decision that night, but I think just scheduling a meeting. And the police and fire board recommended April 26th, which is the night of their next meeting. So that way we can hear from everyone and then they can go back and break and do more business from that.
Now, I have an idea for you. Is that my folks lived out on the lake they've had the place since 1974. And things have changed a lot since then. I think it would be just as productive as if there were to be a meeting asking the lake residents that own cabins to have input. The only time you're going to get them together in one spot is the same weekend that the Lake Association has their annual meeting. If you were to hear from the lake owners, the homeowners that got $500,000 tied up in their cabin, you're going to hear a lot different answer than people from the township.
The people who voted it down were the people who have those houses at the township meeting. Yeah, the two biggest houses on the lake were the people who voted it down.
And I did the math when I got my taxes, so it was $25. Is all it would have gone up. And I agree with Sean. This is kind of where I'm at. We provided this service for, 10 years. And if, there's some liability issues out there. We had our squad that we're having to replace is being replaced because we had an officer responding to a call outside of city limits. And, those are the things that, as a city, we have liability for. If our officers respond to a call out there and something goes sideways, we open the city up for liability. Now, if the townspeople want to provide that service for free, to the township and continue doing it, great. I just want to hear that from them, and I want that direction from them. And like I told Sean, and I told the entire committee, as somebody who's dedicated his life to serving people and keeping people safe, it pains me to even have to have this conversation because that goes against every fiber of our being and what we're here to do. But, if I stop paying my garbage bill, West Central doesn't keep picking up my garbage.
No.
Did you keep charging you a vacant home fee? Oh, yeah, not in the township.
You said that the two individuals or residents on the lake did not want this to happen?
Right.
Do they live there full time?
Yes.
Now we should get the part-timers that come up during the weekends.
Well, I
Because
mean,
they're paying Heartland or ADT or whatever for security, where, you know, that's what, up to $100 a month, if they were to have, you know, patrol.
my point, my thought at this point is, this is the way, we went to the township's annual meeting, and I'm not interested at this point in continuing to court them on doing this. I think we need to have a direction from our residents on what it's going to look like going forward. Because I know that there were members of the township at that meeting who were concerned about the potential of us not responding to calls anymore and what that might look like. But it was hard for me to say, look, we're not going to do it when we don't know what we're going to do. We just know we need to have this conversation now. And I think it's going to be important one way or another, if we want to continue the contracting conversation out there, to be able to say, well, we're just not coming, or whatever that might be. So I think having this joint meeting, hearing from the residents who pay taxes and pay for the new squads and getting the opinion from them, I think we need to start there. And from there, we can talk about other ways of.
Well, the demographics out there are changing.
Yep.
You're not seeing 30 and 40-year-olds buying cabins anymore out there. Those are people who either retired or, you know, are at an age where they bought it cheap enough.
So,
Well, and it's, in my conversations with the township, no matter what direction this goes, it's on the township then to have their own meeting with their residents. If the city says, we're not providing the service, it's then on the township to have that conversation with the residents and say, okay, you need to understand our protection could be a half an hour to 45 minutes away, or we have this option, what do you want to do? But that's on the township, and as a township resident, it's what it is.
I will.
So,
But, I mean, for right now, we're just looking at scheduling that special meeting.
Okay.
The recommendation is to do it on Wednesday, April 26th at, Jen, we talked on the phone, you said 6:05, but I see our action sheet here
So
says.
the public hearing would actually start at 6:05, but, you know, you have you call your regular meeting for your special meeting to order at 6. You probably approve your minutes and then go into the public hearing. Depending upon, if you do that, it would be in the paper, you know, you give adequate notice in the paper, but also we could give notice in our city newsletter, because I believe that publication is going to be mid-April. That would hit a few more people that maybe don't get the press. It would also be on our, you know, our Facebook and website. But I know every box holder gets the newsletter, so it would get the word out there at least.
it probably also hit the township, right?
Yes. So
So,
it's gonna hit some.
So
It'll be in
there's a handful that get it, just by the way the route is, but I would think that it would spread, you know, as you start attending events, whether it be athletics or church or Lions or bingo or whatever it may be, I think it would get some attention.
Right. Before I forget, I'd also like to put on there, and then you and I can sit down and develop it, or I can send you my thoughts, but just sort of a meeting protocol that we can adopt in those first 5 minutes. So approve minutes and then the
Yeah.
protocol for the meeting. I don't want 400 people sitting in here shouting over one another. Just some sort of a clear protocol.
Length of time to speak and addressing your name and address and things like that.
Yep. Okay. So with that, a motion will be in order setting the public meeting if that's what council wants to do.
I'll make a motion to set a special joint city council and police and fire advisory board meeting for Wednesday, April 26, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Okay, motion by Thielen, is there a second? Seconded by Sonia, stated on the action sheet, setting a joint meeting April 26th at 6 p.m. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries.
Yeah, so then the public hearing will be open like at 6:05 or 6:10 or something.
Perfect. Okay. All right, then we have an update to the charitable gambling application permit by the Grand Stars Unlimited, adding in the April 13th date and authorizing the mayor to sign. Just correcting an error on the original application here.
They usually include 2 dates on their application because they do some preliminary prior to their banquet. And this year they neglected to put in that pre-date, which is the 13th. They only listed the 14th. So the Gambling Control Board wants them to at least know that the city acknowledges that. So they've asked us to sign the letter.
I'll make the motion to approve the modification to the Dr. Cronus Ducks Unlimited gambling permit by adding April 13th and authorize the mayor to sign the letter to the Minnesota Gambling Control Board.
Right, there's a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. All right, revisiting the minimum bid for the snowplow. As mentioned earlier during the reports, there was a minimum bid placed on that of $4,500. It went for 35? 36. So we're just looking for council action, either rejecting the sale, or I guess we probably already took the minimum bid off. So we'd be looking at approving the sale of the snowplow for $3,600. I'm fine with that. It's going to be more time to...
I'll make that.
Okay. Motion by Soini to allow the sale of the plow for $3,600. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. Okay, 4 minutes, so we can be under an hour. Ron, shelter.
All right, quickly then. Last year we did apply for this here same grant. We were unsuccessful at that time. Guess what we did a little bit different this year? We did submit it to the DNR for a review 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And they came back and made some very strong suggestions. You know, they are very high on ADA and accessibility. So they recommended that we run a sidewalk all the way from South Street up to the shelter and from the shelter over to the soccer fields. You can see that is included on the maps in here now. However, that did substantially increase our cost. Just that alone, I think, was in the neighborhood of that $70,000. Total project cost now, we're looking at about $511, requesting half of that, $255,000 for grant request, and the same would be our match. The other part that we were very successful in was soliciting the donations. As you can see there, we do have approximately that $101,000 in committed donations. So that the application looks substantially better than it did a year ago. So let's hope we can be successful.
I got a question for you, Ron. ADA accessible walk says concrete. Would asphalt be any better?
I think asphalt would be more expensive.
I think it's more expensive.
Okay, just asking.
I'm pretty sure it's more expensive.
We can surely look into it when we get to that point.
Get a council.
Yeah.
One other thought might be, if the issue is really showing the ADA compatibility, would we be able to promote things like signs that have Braille features on them, or other things that make a difference at a pretty...
I think they have to be in here, yes. I mean, it's, when we write the specs on this, there will be Braille on, you know, for the restrooms, et cetera, yes. That's all included. That's why the engineering on this will be more than what we would normally see.
All right, with that, a motion would be in order regarding the authorization or approval of the grant application.
I make the motion to approve the Emily Park Shelter Grant Application Applicant's Resolution 2023-09 and authorize the city administrator to sign the grant documents and submit the grant application.
All right, motion is stated on the action sheet by Thielen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Soini. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Carries. All right, with that, we have some reports listed on our informational that can be found on the website. Our meeting schedules are enclosed in the agenda. And as Ron talked about that Emerald Ash Borer grant, we did not receive that. Right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You did it in an hour, Sean.